So hi, Shawn. How you doing?
Good.
Tell me what you do here.
I am the receptionist. It's my job to route calls and see that people get where they need to go.
How do you get here?
I roll here in my wheelchair.
Oh, we've had adventures with your chairs, haven't we?
Oh, yeah. We managed to go out of Vienna on a backpack each.
Why do we travel light?
Because it would be really, really hard to carry everything otherwise. I always like thumbing my nose at the people who bring half of their lives with them when they travel.
Oh, I have seen that too.
We travel essentially out of the back of my wheelchair. I have a neurological disorder called cerebral palsy. I am classified as spastic quadriplegic. I have motor control problems in all four limbs, so things don't quite move the way they should. But it also hugely affects my legs, which is why I spend so much of my time in a wheelchair.
Why don't you tell us about our trip to France, Belgium, and England?
We started off in Paris. We stayed in this tiny, tiny little hotel room that was so small they couldn't even get my wheelchair up to it. And they had like this old iron elevator that we had to get into. So they would put me in the elevator and you would walk me across the hallway to the room when the elevator opened on the next floor. And they would keep the chair in the kitchen. I love Paris, but one thing I couldn't stand was all the cobblestones. So we got back and my chair was completely trashed.
And where did we trash your chair?
It was at the Père Lachaise graveyard. It's where they send bad wheelchair users to hell.
Where did you go to school?
I started at Arnold Elementary School. I had to repeat first grade. I had a surgery that is colloquially referred to as the blue plate special. They lengthened my hamstrings and made incisions in 5 places, but the upshot of that was that I missed a whole bunch of school while I was in recovery, so they made me repeat first grade and went on to Jefferson Middle School, then on to West High School here in Torrance as well, and then for college, El Camino Community College, and transferred into Loyola Marymount University, and that's where I finished out my degree in political science.
You've been talking a little bit about a project that you have wanted to start. Tell us about that project.
I think I could do an interesting travel channel on travel and disability.
What is your earliest memory? What's the first
Falling
thing
off a couch when I was 2 years old. The orange couch with the foam cushions. That was the very earliest thing I remember.
And you remember falling off of it?
Because somebody picked me up later on in the night. And then a few weeks later, I got my own bed. It was one of those race car box beds.
Did you share the room with anybody?
Well, it was first shared with my older brother, and then when my older brother wanted some more space, it was eventually shared with my younger brother. I used to play action figures with my younger brother a lot.
That was fun to watch the two of you play because your mobility was kind of limited.
It was mostly on the floor, I think, and he would dump it out in a pile and we would kind of extract the ones we wanted for whatever scene we were going to do.
So do you have a favorite memory from going to Loyola? How did it feel to be by yourself?
Weird. Suddenly, everything that had to get done, I essentially had to do myself. I couldn't necessarily rely on my roommates to do it.
Such as?
I was the only one who reliably did the vacuuming.
You were in the wheelchair and they were able-bodied and you did the vacuuming.
I was able to do it in part because you had gotten me a hand vac. So I did it on my knees and I would do the room in sections. It took me between 1 and 2 hours depending on how bad the floor was in a given week. By a strange coincidence, I found somebody at school who had the same disorder that I did. We became good friends, and I found out that she had been in the dorm room that I was using my last semester.
So how did you get around campus?
Mostly in my wheelchair. There were a few days that I used crutches. Up until the end of high school, I was on crutches. I have balance problems. So I was falling all the time. It was almost a running joke. I would come to physical therapy and it would be like, okay, how many times did you fall this week? And I would say, oh, pretty good. It was only about 2 or 3 or 4, somewhere in there. By the time I hit junior year, I had it down to about 2 or 3 times a week.
You were in Paris, and we were in line at the Notre Dame waiting to go in to see the cathedral. And do you remember what happened?
Yes. There was a Romanian gypsy, and The gypsies will find groups of tourists and they will beg. They extend their hand and say, "Oh, can you spare some money?" And then they got to me, they completely turn their head away. Apparently there's quite a huge stigma in the gypsy community surrounding disabilities. They must have thought I was cursed.
Yes, she did
thought
a
I
warning
was
gesture.
possessed or something.
Changing gears a little bit, how has your life been different than what you'd imagined it might have been?
Very quickly, you start realizing once you have a disability that it's like if I had graduated school on time instead of being held back by X amount of years, I'd be going to LMU that much sooner. And you think to yourself, it would have been nice to graduate on time like everybody else. And then you start thinking, oh, but I wouldn't know all of the people that I know now. And there are definitely a bunch of experiences that I would not have had.
In just 1 or 2 sentences, how would you like to be remembered?
How would I like to be remembered? I'm 28 now, so I don't think I've lived long enough to answer that question.